Todd. Good morning, Todd. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Thanks for having me today.
Great. It's great to have you. So let's talk about yesterday's service advisor and today's service advisor. If I were a dealer and I were to ask you, hey, what should I be looking for in hiring a new advisor compared to what I looked for in the past?
It's a good question, and I think I'll provide some full disclosure here. Well, obviously, I run Go Moto. We also are a dealer. We own a Volkswagen dealership as well. So I've got a unique perspective in thinking about the world, both as a dealer, but also as a supplier of technology. And I think, importantly, as we've seen kind of the shift in what I call kind of frictionless customer experiences over the last, kind of 7 to 10 years in the drive, we saw it from an e-commerce standpoint where, the salesman's role, for example, has changed a little bit. Our BDCs have become critically important and kind of the skill sets required there to deal with customers, really in a fully digital environment. We're starting to see that transition into the service drive a little bit, and predominantly because of the culture of appointments we've built and service BDCs becoming bigger. We've seen, and what we've tried to hire is advisors that are customer centric first. And what I mean by that is, they're educational, they're conversational, and they have an understanding that, it's more about that experience than potentially understanding, everything as it may relate to a specific vehicle or the product itself. And I think we've come a long way with kind of the tools that we've been able to layer with our advisors, with like electronic MPIs and educating our techs that, have kind of changed that. And that's a similar model you've seen across a lot of, I'd say, larger progressive retailers. They're focusing on, individuals that can be those customer experience advocates versus, say, being very deep product experts and so forth. And that's probably been the biggest change that we've seen in terms of the folks that we're hiring. And we tend to bring in a little bit younger folks that, again, have a little bit more flexibility in terms of learning and being coached in those regards.
So in that sense, how important do you think it is um, that we embrace an electronic MPI and do it soon?
Well, I mean, to me, it's a fundamental element of how we should be working with customers. Because if you think about kind of consumer preferences, and I think COVID has really shed the light on probably some of the biggest challenges we've seen in automotive, which is e-commerce on the front end, and variable has essentially accelerated companies like Carvana and Vroom, and customers are demanding that, right? And that was the only way by which we were able to kind of sell a vehicle, right, for the most part during COVID. Same on kind of the service side. Customers want to be able to interact with you digitally. And I think if you see the rise of all the texting companies and you see the rise of opt-ins from a text, authorization standpoint at the average dealership, that's the primary means by which consumers want to engage with you, right? The second then becomes kind of email. And then, there's always that kind of, phone call, telephone kind of conversations and face-to-face. But being able, and just think about it from a psychological perspective as a consumer. If I'm a consumer and you come and I drive into your lane, and you do the walk around, you present me with 5 items before you've even really looked at the car and diagnosed it, there's what we call the consideration period, where consumers are frankly put back, right? And they kind of crunch up and say, I don't know if I'm comfortable purchasing that. But give that customer 30 minutes and come back with an electronic presentation and video or photos and a very specific description of the brake pads or the tires and things of that nature, things that we found. That consideration period, customers feel much more comfortable knowing that you've looked at the vehicle, you're making a specific recommendation, and oh, by the way, here's the factual evidence to prove that, right? In a very constructive way and allowing a consumer to make that decision. You can see, I mean, you look at all the electronic MPI platforms that are out there. The upsell ratios typically tend to be about a 3-to-1 from what we've seen. By delivering an electronic MPI and then an uplift per RO is pretty significant when you're presenting a electronic MPI to every customer.
So run that number by me one more time. What did you say?
3 times more likely to sell additional work than doing it initially on the drive.
You know, I want to share a story with you that goes along with something that you just said. Uh, my brother had some struggles in his service department with upsells. He was doing a decent job with MPIs, wasn't doing a decent job with closing the deal. So he decided to sit down in the service department waiting lounge and just watch what's going on and what happens. And he witnessed the advisors coming out on a consistent basis and sit down with the customer, review the MPI. And he, as I say, he was doing a pretty good job with the MPI. So he's got a good MPI. Of course, it's handwritten, right? And he's got it in his hand. And they sat down, did a decent job explaining to the customer what they found with the vehicle, but they still weren't getting anywhere. So he said to them, they're still getting declined. So he said to them, you know, let's do this. Let's show that to the customer and then walk away and give them an opportunity to breathe for a minute or two. And don't ask them for a commitment. Just review it with them and tell them, hey, we'll be back in just a few minutes once you have an opportunity to digest this. What do you think happened as soon as he walked away?
Yeah, consumers take more time. They research it. They understand the critical nature of it. It's that consideration period, because consumers, right? We're all consumers. We like to be able to control the frequency, the speed, the convenience, the transparency. We like to control that in the buying experience. And so most customers are fearful when presented something saying make a decision right now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they saw an increase per RO and total number of services sold.
And this is the first thing that happened. As soon as they walked away, here come the phone. And who do you think they called?
Well, they called their partner, their spouse, exactly, somebody to get, How
are we going to come up with this money? What are we going to do? And he found that when he gave him 7 minutes to make a decision, then walked back over and said, hey, how's things going? Did you have an opportunity to digest this? Guess what happened? Right? He started closing those deals. And I think that's what this separation between the pressure that the consumer might feel.